Tonight, we've selected 3 horror stories, supposedly sent by listeners just like you, each with a dark truth that begs to be revealed. In our first account, we travel to the secluded lakes of North Carolina following Megan Willis, who recalls a chilling camping trip with her family when she was only 6 years old. What she witnessed that day in the depths of the lake still haunts her dreams decades later. Something beneath the surface was watching her family, a face she swears was real. After Megan's story, we'll journey across the Atlantic to England, where Oliver Griggs shares his unsettling encounters within an old university dormitory. Strange midnight knockings, shadowy corridors, and the mysterious laughter of an invisible visitor. Finally, from Quebec, Canada, Chloe Mercier reveals the terrifying night when a seemingly harmless college party turned into a nightmare. After waking alone in a dark room, she realized someone was hiding in the closet, silently watching her. These stories are all real experiences shared directly with us by listeners around the world. If you've experienced something strange, mysterious, or frightening, an event you still can't explain, send us your story. Please visit our website, Ghordan.com. Your experience could be featured in our next episode. And now, dim your lights, put on your headphones, and prepare yourself for tonight's main story, Something Moved Under the Boat. Today's chilling account was sent to us by Megan Willis, a current resident of Asheville, North Carolina. According to Megan's submission through our website, the events described took place over 2 decades ago, back when she was only 6 years old. The backdrop for her strange and deeply unsettling experience was an isolated lake nestled within the dense, quiet forests of rural North Carolina. A seemingly tranquil place, occasionally frequented by local fishermen and families looking for a peaceful weekend getaway. According to Megan's account, it was early summer, around June. Her family had decided to spend the weekend camping near the secluded lake shore. Her parents often sought out quiet locations to escape from the stress and routines of city life, and this particular lake had been recommended by a friend of her father's for its untouched beauty and peaceful ambiance. The day began like any other ordinary family camping trip. Megan and her parents arrived at the campsite early in the morning. It was, as Megan describes in her account, one of those calm, picture-perfect days that didn't hint at anything unusual. Clear skies stretched above, and the water was so still and mirror-like that the trees around its banks reflected perfectly on its surface. In every conceivable way, it seemed to promise a weekend filled with nothing but tranquility and simple family fun. After setting up camp and having a quick lunch, Megan's parents decided it would be enjoyable to spend some time on the water. They brought along a small fishing boat, just large enough for the 3 of them. Megan remembers vividly, even now as an adult, how bright and clear the day was as they pushed off gently from the muddy shoreline, gliding silently onto the lake's calm surface. For the first half hour, everything appeared perfectly normal. Megan sat at the boat's center, her father rowing slowly, rhythmically, and her mother occasionally casting a fishing line. It wasn't until they drifted toward the far end of the lake, an area slightly overgrown by tall grasses and overshadowed by the thick branches of tall, ancient-looking trees, that things began to take a bizarre turn. Megan remembers leaning slightly over the edge of the boat, looking curiously at her reflection in the water. At that precise moment, something odd caught her attention. Beneath her mirrored reflection, something seemed to shift. It was subtle at first, little more than a shadow or ripple, easily dismissed as a trick of sunlight or an underwater plant moving gently beneath the surface. But as the boat drifted a little further, Megan became certain there was something else beneath the water. Something solid, something real. It took a few moments for her young eyes to fully grasp what she was seeing. Her reflection vanished, replaced slowly by something that began to materialize just inches below the water's dark surface. A face. She described it as pale, disturbingly pale. Almost bluish in hue, its texture unnatural and swollen, its features distorted by decay or some unidentifiable process. Two hollow, blackened eye sockets stared emptily upward, surrounded by mottled, bloated flesh that seemed both solid and grotesquely loose at once. The mouth, partially agape, revealed dark gaps where teeth had likely rotted away long ago. And yet, what disturbed Megan most was how this face moved. Not drifting aimlessly, as one would expect from an inanimate object beneath the water, but floating slowly alongside the boat, keeping pace, as if consciously observing their every movement. Megan recalls clearly how her body froze instantly. For several moments, she simply stared down, her eyes locked onto that hideous face. Her immediate instinct was to scream, to call out to her parents in fear, but no sound came. Her tiny voice seemed trapped, choked off by fear and confusion. Unable to alert her family to what was following them just beneath the surface. Her father noticed something wrong almost immediately, asking if she felt sick. Megan shook her head weakly, struggling to find words. Her mother gently placed a reassuring hand on Megan's shoulder, completely unaware of what lay inches beneath the surface beside their boat. Finally, Megan mustered the courage to point downward, mumbling quietly about a face beneath the water. Her parents, understandably skeptical, peered down into the lake. They saw nothing. Only their own reflections in the occasional ripple caused by the boat's movement. To them, the lake remained utterly normal, devoid of the haunting image Megan so vividly described. They assured Megan that what she had seen was merely her imagination, or perhaps a strange reflection caused by sunlight hitting the water. But Megan, even at that tender age, knew what she saw was neither imagination nor sunlight playing tricks. She remained quiet, withdrawn for the rest of the boat ride, no longer daring to look over the side. Her father soon decided it was time to head back to shore, noticing how shaken his daughter appeared. As the boat turned and headed slowly back toward their campsite, Megan kept her gaze fixed straight ahead, not once daring to glance down again. However, as they neared the shore, a disturbing thought crept into Megan's mind. She felt an inexplicable urge, almost an involuntary impulse, to look back toward the place they'd left behind, the shaded area beneath the old twisted trees. Against every instinct telling her to keep facing forward, she slowly turned her head around, her eyes searching the waters behind the boat one last time. What she saw at that exact moment was something that would haunt her for years to come, well into her adulthood. Just above the water's surface, far enough behind them now that the details were blurred, yet unmistakably clear, was the same face she'd seen beneath the lake. Only now, its pale, decomposed features were partially emerging from the water. Silently watching them leave, Megan remembers clearly that the face seemed fixed directly upon her, maintaining its gaze without blinking, unmoving, as if bidding a silent and terrible farewell. This time, Megan could not suppress her scream. She cried out loudly, pointing desperately behind them. Her parents, startled by her sudden panic, immediately turned around, but by then, the water behind them lay perfectly still, empty and quiet, as if nothing had ever broken its calm. Her parents, alarmed by Megan's state of distress, quickly rowed the boat ashore. They searched the waters, scanned the shoreline, and tried in vain to comfort their visibly shaken daughter. Yet, they never saw anything unusual that day. No floating debris, no animal, no person, nothing. Megan grew up carrying that memory. She swears to this day that she saw something beneath the water, but nobody ever believed her. When she tells this story to her friends, they usually laugh it off or make jokes, dismissing her experience as nothing more than a child's imagination gone wild. But we all know, dear listeners, that experiences like these, visions, sightings, unexplained phenomena, often exist beyond the realm of scientific explanation. Many people attribute such encounters to imagination, stress, or hallucination, simply because these things can't be proven scientifically. And while it's true, there might never be a scientific explanation for what Megan saw that day. Let's be honest. People like you and me understand there are supernatural forces at play in this world. Events and phenomena that occur in our physical reality, but perhaps can only be truly understood in a spiritual dimension. Do you agree? Let's keep searching for answers together. If you have any thoughts or experiences to share, feel free to write them in the comments section right here on this video. We'll be reading. Now, our next story tonight is also rather intriguing and just as frightening. This account was sent to us by Oliver Griggs, a 31-year-old man from Manchester, England. He writes about a strange and unexplained series of events that took place during his university years. An experience that, even today, leaves him with more questions than answers. According to Oliver, the incidents occurred during his second year while he was living in one of the university's older dormitory buildings. The dorm, built in the 1950s, had a reputation among students for being a bit outdated. Creaky floorboards, thin walls, and long, dimly lit hallways. But aside from the occasional ghost story whispered in passing, no one took the building's age as anything more than an inconvenience. It started on a Wednesday night, around 2:30 in the morning. Oliver had been up late studying and had just turned off his laptop and settled into bed. The room was quiet, except for the low hum of the radiator. That's when he heard it, a faint tapping sound coming from his door. At first, he assumed it was just one of his friends playing a late-night prank, so he called out, "Who's there?" but there was no response. The tapping stopped. Curious, he got up, walked to the door, and opened it. Nothing. The hallway was empty, lit only by the weak glow of the nightlight at the far end. No footsteps, no voices, no sign of anyone having been there. Shrugging it off, Oliver went back to bed. But the next night, it happened again. Same time, same sound. Light tapping, then silence when he opened the door. The hallway, once again, completely empty. By the third night, Oliver was beginning to feel uneasy. This time, when the tapping started, he got up quickly and opened the door almost immediately. That's when he saw it. A figure at the far end of the hallway, turning the corner. Oliver described it as a man, older in appearance, wearing a long dark coat and moving at a strange, hurried pace, almost like a shuffle, as if he was trying to move quietly but couldn't quite manage it. He watched, stunned, as the man disappeared around the corner, heading toward the dorm's shared bathroom. Oliver, now wide awake and filled with a mix of curiosity and unease, decided to follow. The hallway was silent as he approached the bathroom. The air felt heavy, thick, as if the building itself was holding its breath. When he reached the bathroom door, he noticed it was slightly ajar. The lights inside were off, leaving the room in complete darkness. Oliver hesitated for a moment, then slowly pushed the door open. The bathroom was empty, or at least it seemed that way at first. That's when he heard it. A low, guttural laugh, a sound that seemed to come from one of the stalls at the far end of the room. The laugh wasn't high-pitched or playful. It was deep, rough, and slow, like an old man chuckling quietly to himself. The sound echoed slightly in the tiled space, bouncing off the walls in a way that made it hard to pinpoint exactly where it was coming from. Carefully, Oliver inched forward, his eyes adjusting to the dark. He crouched slightly, trying to see beneath the stall doors. That's when he saw them. A pair of heavy black boots. Thick-soled, scuffed and worn, positioned beneath the farthest stall. They were pointed outward, as if someone was standing inside. Oliver's heart raced. He called out, asking who was there, but there was no response. The laughter had stopped. The air inside the bathroom felt colder now, almost damp, and a strange faint smell, like old wet fabric, seemed to linger in the air. Summoning what courage he had left, Oliver slowly reached for the stall door and pushed it open. Nothing. The boots were still there, positioned exactly as before, yet there was no one standing in them. No legs, no body, no figure, just the boots. He stepped back quickly, scanning the room in disbelief, but the bathroom was otherwise empty. The other stalls were open. The mirrors reflected only his own frightened expression, and the air was silent once again. Oliver backed out of the room, shutting the door behind him. He checked the hallway, still empty, still silent. When he returned to his room, he locked the door and sat in bed, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of what he had just seen. The next day, he asked around, hoping for an explanation, but none of the other students had heard or seen anything strange. Some laughed, dismissing his story as a prank. Oliver, though, remains convinced of what he experienced. He knows what he saw. He remembers the boots. He remembers the sound of that laugh, and he knows, deep down, that there was no logical explanation for what happened in that hallway. Was it a prank? A trick of the mind? Or was it something else entirely? Something that doesn't belong in our world? He doesn't know, and perhaps he never will. This next account was sent to us by Sophie Moreau, a 26-year-old woman from Trois-Rivières, Quebec, Canada. She describes a night that began like any other during her time at university, until it took a turn she never expected. Sophie writes that she and her boyfriend were invited to a party at a fraternity house located off campus, an old, weathered building she had never been to before. The fraternity, according to her, wasn't particularly well known. It wasn't the kind of place her usual group of friends would frequent, but that night, curiosity got the better of her. The house was crowded, loud and dimly lit. Music blasted from a cheap speaker system, and the air was thick with a mix of sweat, alcohol, and cigarette smoke. People packed into small rooms, leaning against walls, laughing and shouting over the noise. Sophie didn't recognize most of the faces there, but her boyfriend seemed to know a few of the guys, so she stayed close by his side. At some point, a man approached her with a small bottle, something dark, probably hard liquor, and offered it to her with a grin. She hesitated, but after a quick exchange of smiles and a few convincing words from the stranger, she accepted and took a small sip. The taste was harsh, bitter, but she shrugged it off, thinking it was just another cheap drink at a college party. What Sophie remembers next is fragmented, disjointed images and sounds. She remembered standing near the kitchen, feeling her legs start to go numb. The light seemed to blur, the music warped, and voices became muffled, distant. At some point, she lost sight of her boyfriend. After that, everything goes dark. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer at the party. She was in a room. A small, dark room, unfamiliar and cold. The only light came from a faint glow seeping in through the gap under the door. And beyond it, she could still hear the muffled thump of the music outside. Inside the room, though, there was only silence. Sophie tried to sit up, her head pounding, but her body felt weak, sluggish. That's when she heard it, a faint crinkling sound. It was subtle, barely audible at first, like the soft rustle of plastic bags being stepped on or shifted. The sound came from the corner of the room, near a small closed closet door. At first, she thought she must be imagining it. The rational part of her mind tried to explain it away. Perhaps the sound of the old building settling, or the vibrations of the bass from the music outside. But the sound continued, as if someone was inside the closet, shifting its weight ever so slightly. Sophie's heart began to race. She strained to hear beyond the pulse in her ears. Holding her breath, the rustling stopped for a moment, then started again. Louder this time, accompanied by a faint scraping sound, like a shoe sliding across a wooden floor. She She knew then she wasn't alone in that room. Too scared to move, she stared at the closet door, waiting for it to open. But it didn't. The door remained shut, the room still engulfed in darkness. The sound continued, just slow enough to be maddening. Rustle, pause, scrape. Rustle, pause, scrape. Then, in the silence between the noises, she heard something else. Breathing. Deep, slow breathing, coming from behind the closed door. That was enough. Sophie bolted upright, ignoring the dizziness and the pain in her head, stumbled toward the door and threw it open. She ran blindly into the hallway, nearly colliding with another group of students who barely seemed to notice her. Her boyfriend found her moments later, sitting on the curb outside, shaking, unable to explain what had happened. Sophie never went back to that house, and she never tried to find out what had been in that closet with her. She ends her account by saying, "Sometimes it's better not to know." And perhaps she's right. And now, after hearing these stories, we can't help but wonder, how many of these strange encounters might simply be imagination, and how many might be something else entirely? We hear stories like these from all over the world. Strange events, unexplained moments, shadows that move when they shouldn't, voices that call out from empty rooms, faces that stare from beneath the water. What do we make of them? Are they simply tricks of the mind, or is there something more? Maybe the truth is, there are things happening in this world that we simply aren't meant to understand, at least not yet. And that's why we want to hear from you. If you've experienced something strange, something that you've never been able to explain, even if no one else believed you, we will. Send your story to Ghordan.com. Share what happened. We want to listen. Because we know the people who subscribe to this channel, who love these kinds of stories, they'll want to hear it too. And before you go, we invite you to watch our next video, an origin tale that chills to the bone, the terrifying legend of the yo-yo.